would you do if your entire community turned against you for standing up for what's right? Would you stay silent to keep the peace, or speak out knowing the cost could be everything? Would you walk away, or would you plant your feet, even as the ground beneath you trembled with rejection? What would you do if your entire community turned against you for standing up for what's right? This isn't just a modern-day question, it's an ancient one, and it echoes through the story of Prophet Lut. A man chosen by God, Lut was sent to a society that had plunged into moral decay, corruption, and lawlessness. Surrounded by a people who openly defied divine boundaries and indulged in shameless acts, Lut stood alone, a voice of truth in a sea of transgression. He called them to purity, to justice, to the path of righteousness. He pleaded not with anger, but with compassion. Yet, instead of reflection, his people responded with hostility. They mocked him, threatened him, and ultimately demanded that he and his followers leave the city. Drive them out of your town. They are people who keep themselves pure. Quran 782. Imagine the weight of that moment standing firm in your faith, knowing that doing so could cost you your home, your safety, and your community. Lut faced the ultimate moral dilemma: conform or be cast out. He chose conviction over compromise, integrity over acceptance. His story is not just a tale from the past, it's a mirror for the present. What do we do when right is unpopular? When standing for truth means standing alone, the story of Prophet Lut, as told in the Quran and supported by earlier Abrahamic scriptures, is a profound account of moral resistance in the face of widespread societal decay. Lut was sent as a messenger to the people of Sodom, a community that had strayed far from ethical and spiritual guidance. His mission was not only to warn them, but to remind them of the inherent dignity of human behavior, a call that was met with mockery, hostility, and outright rejection. 1. Widespread immorality and deviance. One of the most defining features of the people of Sodom was their open and unrepentant indulgence in sexual immorality, particularly homosexual acts committed violently and without consent, which were condemned not just as personal sins but as markers of a society that had normalized injustice and perversion. Do you commit such immorality as no one has preceded you with from among the worlds? Indeed, you approach men with desire instead of women. Rather, you are a transgressing people. Quran 780-81. However, their sins extended beyond sexuality. They engaged in robbery and highway theft, even attacking travelers. Public shamelessness, committing indecent acts openly and without remorse. Social cruelty and oppression, targeting the weak and righteous. 2. Rejection of moral guidance. Prophet Lut did not arrive with aggression, but with a plea for reform, urging his people to turn back to the path of God. His message, however, was seen as a threat to their way of life. Rather than reflect on their actions, they turned their scorn on him. Expel the family of Lut from your city. Indeed, they are people who keep themselves pure. Quran 27:56. This response is deeply revealing. They ridiculed purity, viewing moral uprightness as a deviation from their norm. The righteous were marginalized not because they were wrong, but because they dared to challenge the collective conscience of a corrupt society. 3. The threat of isolation and intimidation. Lut was not only ignored, but isolated and threatened. As a prophet, he experienced the emotional toll of watching a society plunge deeper into corruption, despite his sincere efforts to guide them. He even offered his protection to guests who were being targeted by the townspeople, pleading with them to uphold basic decency only to be further ridiculed. These are my daughters, i.e., women of the community. They are pure for you. Do not disgrace me concerning my guests. Quran 11:78. This plea was not just about hospitality. It was a desperate attempt to awaken their buried sense of honor and humanity. But the people had grown numb. Their arrogance and sinfulness had clouded any recognition of right and wrong. Lessons from the story. The tale of Prophet Lut is not merely a historical account. It is a powerful reflection on the dangers of normalized sin, the courage to speak truth, and the cost of standing for righteousness when society has abandoned its moral compass. When immorality becomes law and virtue becomes rebellion, the righteous become outcasts. When prophets are treated as threats, society seals its own downfall. When injustice is normalized, divine justice becomes inevitable. Ultimately, the destruction of Sodom was not just a punishment for individual sins, but for a collective societal failure, one in which sin was institutionalized and truth was silenced. In a society where vice was celebrated and virtue was ridiculed, Prophet Lut stood as a solitary voice of conscience. Tasked with guiding a community steeped in moral depravity, he faced not only rejection but hostility, yet he never wavered. His life offers timeless lessons on moral courage, steadfastness, and trusting in God amid adversity. 1. Remaining steadfast. Despite isolation, Prophet Lut was not supported by his people. He was mocked, isolated, and threatened. Even his own wife, according to Islamic tradition, was complicit in the corruption of the community. Imagine the loneliness of standing for truth when even your household does not share your convictions. And yet, Lut never turned away from his mission. He continued to warn, to advise, and to plead with his people, not out of anger, but out of a sincere desire to see them saved. Indeed, I am to you a trustworthy messenger. So fear Allah and obey me. Quran 26, 162, 163. Even when surrounded by darkness, he refused to extinguish his light. 2. Upholding morality without compromise. Lut's greatest challenge wasn't just preaching morality, it was doing so in a society that had inverted the very meaning of right and wrong. His people had become so morally corrupt that they considered purity a flaw. But Lut never diluted his message. He did not adapt truth to be more palatable. He understood that real guidance cannot come from compromise, it must be rooted in principle, even if it's unpopular. You certainly approach men with desire instead of women. Rather, you are a transgressing people. Quran 7, 81. In these few words, we see a man who stood by divine truth, even when it made him a target. 3. Trusting divine justice over human acceptance. Perhaps the most powerful part of Lut's story is not just his preaching, but his deep reliance on Allah. When it became clear that his people would not change, and that his calls were falling on deaf ears, he did not give up, he turned to God. My Lord, support me against the corrupting people. Quran 29:30. This heartfelt prayer marks a shift, a moment where Lut entrusted the outcome not to his efforts, but to God's justice. And God responded. Angels were sent, destruction was decreed, and Lut was commanded to leave with the few who believed. His faith was not in numbers or influence. His faith was in the one who sees all. 4. Deliverance for the faithful Lut story ends not in defeat, but in vindication. He and the believers were spared, while the people who had corrupted themselves were destroyed in a dramatic display of divine justice. So we saved him and his family, except for his wife. She was of those who remained behind. Quran 7, 80. 3. This was not just physical salvation, it was moral victory. It affirmed that even if the world turns against righteousness, God does not abandon the righteous. What we learn from Prophet Lut's legacy is not just about the sins of his people, it's about the strength of one man's moral resolve. He teaches us to speak the truth, even when no one wants to hear it, to hold on to faith when society loses its way, to trust God's justice when human systems fail, and to never compromise righteousness for the comfort of conformity. In a world where standing up for what's right can often feel lonely or dangerous, the story of Prophet Lut reminds us, you're never truly alone when you stand with truth. Thank you for joining me in reflecting on the powerful story of Prophet Lut and the incredible courage it takes to stand for what's right, even when the world turns against you. I'd love to hear your thoughts. What lessons from Prophet Lut's story resonate with you the most? Have you ever faced a situation where standing up for truth felt challenging? Drop your reflections and experiences in the comments below. Let's start a meaningful conversation together. And if you found this story inspiring, be sure to check out my other videos where I share more timeless narratives of faith, courage, and resilience that can empower us all in our own journeys. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you never miss a new story that uplifts and inspires. See you in the comments!